So what's happening right now is the stream and everything is sort of on and sort of offline, so I can at least talk to you for 2 seconds before we get going. I forgot to charge all the lights. So I've got like dramatic tell a scary story in the dark lighting going on. It's not bad actually. It's kind of growing on me, but it's also made me very aware that like my camera's in a wrong spot. And don't worry, audio listeners, I'm always going to have a soft spot for you guys. Cannot believe I forgot to charge the light. Oh well.
All right. Just remember what I've taught you.
What the fuck is that?
Hey, yo.
It's another Wednesday, right? It's Wednesday. We're good. Yeah, everything's there. This is sort of one of those days for me where I haven't entirely had a good sense of what time of day it is or what day of the week it is. Hello. Hi. Thank you for making it. It is just absolutely positively a lot going on. So first of all, I told the podcast people this. I want to tell you guys watching this. I apologize for your wife gave you an odd look at my air horn. Here, hang on. Now you can have another air horn. Anyway, I apologize if you're watching this and there's like kind of dramatic lighting. There's a light on a pole just over that way. I forgot to charge it. I assumed it was fine because it was fine on Monday. It was not fine on Monday. And just as I sit down and get everything organized for tonight, the damn light goes out. So it's charging here just off camera. And it's kind of giving me this sort of like, do you want to tell the scary stories vibe? Which I'm not opposed to. Frankly, I kind of thought it was going to be like shocking, but it's not bad. I prefer it over there. It at least, makes the rest of me look okay. But, we're making do. We're making do. And I guess that's how we're starting. Oh, man, I guess that's how we're starting. That's a thing, isn't it? So, hi. Thanks for being here. Thanks for putting me in your ears. Let's do the intro. Ladies and gentlemen, guys, gals, non-binary pals, friends, writers, makers, dreamers, planners, outliners, light enthusiasts, people who can understand when to plug batteried things in, anybody who can enjoy a nice walk on a warm day, people who appreciate the beauty outside nature, people who know how to touch grass, anybody who suffered this morning with PlayStation Network's delays, anybody fighting for freedom wherever there's trouble, anybody who's really aware of just how good like a good quality cheese sauce can be on nachos, anybody who's decided that this is the week they're going to suddenly start writing a book, anybody who's looked at or tried to avoid as much drama in their field as possible, and most importantly, the comrades. Welcome to the Writer's Chat for March the 23rd, and through no fault of my own, I continue to be John Adamus, the writer next door. And if this is the first time you're hearing this, if this is the first time you're seeing this, Hi, I'm Twitch's only writing coach. It's a pretty rad title. I'm real pleased about this title. Yeah, I'm the only writing coach on Twitter. You can find, not Twitter, well, mostly, but on Twitch as well. You can find loads of different people writing on Twitch, having all different kinds of moments and co-writing experiences and hangout sessions where they talk about writing and they show off their outline and maybe they kind of tell you what their plans are. But nobody but me is out here answering questions about how to get published, how to do better, how to finish your book, how to start your book, how to fix this, how to fix that, how to handle this problem when it comes up, how to handle that problem before it comes up. Nobody's talking the how-tos. I'm talking the how-tos. So let's talk about what this is real quick. This is the Writer's Chat, where you, if you're watching this in the chat here, hello everyone in the chat, or if you're listening to this, you can leave comments down below wherever you're listening to this, or I guess you could talk to yourself, although I won't be able to answer you. But you can ask questions and get answers to literally any creative question you want. You want to talk about writing? Great. You want to talk about publishing? Fantastic. You want to talk about querying and marketing? You want to talk about screenplays? You want to talk about movies? You want to talk about comics? If it has words in it, chances are we can talk about it. It's a pretty awesome system for you. And as always, it's entirely, absolutely available anytime. And I would love to have you here. And it's nice to see you all. And it's nice to be here. I'm okay. I hope you're okay. I have no ads this week. We almost had a sponsor. It was not Raid Shadow of Legends. We almost had a sponsor. It was supposed to be Bic Pens. But they wanted me to buy material and then talk about it. So no, that's not how that works. So no sponsor again. No logos hanging out over here. Although I can tell you, since one of you had asked me on Monday night what all this software is, what everything is here, it's all Ecamm Live. If you guys want to affiliate, I'll take an affiliate link. Absolutely. Ecamm Live, far better than OBS. Like, takes OBS's lunch money. Ecamm Live, it's the way to go. For Mac, it's amazing. It just makes me happy. And here we are. So, I guess that's my ad. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're ready to go. I'm fired up. Let's ask some questions, shall we? First question. First question. Oh my God, I'm in a little circle this week. Yeah, see, I figured out how to do circles with borders. It's pretty rad. Question number 1. What should an opening chapter's opening paragraph do? Okay. Now, a lot of fuss is made about opening sentences, right? Everybody and their mother is all on you to be like, your opening sentence has to be aggressively good. It has to be good and it has to not suck, which is true, but also admittedly hella vague because it's really subjective to determine what sucks and what doesn't. I like things that people swear up and down suck, and vice versa. But an opening chapter's opening paragraph, a combination of sentences, that's really, in some ways, it's a little bit easier to think about. In some ways, it's a little bit easier to manage. Because you no longer have to put all the weight, all the emphasis, all the need, all the, oh my God, everything is counting on me. Counting on me-ness? Is that a thing? That's a thing now, damn it. It's not all dependent on one sentence. We can spread it out over the course of the paragraph. That first paragraph's job is to, part 1, get us to the next paragraph. And part 2, give us some amount of some things, plural, to picture. And I don't just mean visually. Though visuals are an important part. Remember, your job as a writer is to put a movie in the reader's brain. And part of that movie experience is visual by nature. But you can also develop loads of different other things in conjunction with visuals. You don't even have to do visuals. You just have to give them something to picture, something to consider, hopefully more than one thing, so that you're setting just a starting point Think about a marathon, how that starts. Think about any kind of position you begin in. You don't need to end up in that position. You're not going to end in the same position you start, obviously. But you just need to give yourself the best start possible. Not in terms of if this sentence sucks, you're doomed. Because that is some shit you will see on the internet. There are people in my field who will tell you that the be-all end-all is your first sentence. And while that is really melodramatic and very, very clickbaity, it is grossly inaccurate. The job of an opening paragraph is to just develop the reader and give them something to think about, something to read, something to picture, and interest them enough so that they'll go on to the next paragraph, so that they'll keep reading, so that they want more information, so they keep thinking and imagining and they stick with your story. One of the unspoken parts of this, in terms of what it should do, is that how you write your sentences, how long they are, what words you choose, how you punctuate them, how you put them on the page, all that stuff, trains the reader to read. Oh, this is how, whatever your name is, this is how they write the story. This is how they're going to tell me about dialogue. This is how they're going to show me the things they want me to picture. That's not an intentional thing. It just sort of happens over the course of developing the ideas. But an opening chapter's opening paragraph is just a starting point and some amount of visual or some amount of mental or some amount of developed information that will generate or compel a person to get more, to want more. That's the job of an opening paragraph. Doesn't matter what genre it is, doesn't matter what book it is, doesn't matter how long the paragraph is. It's just got to give the reader something to put in their brain and chew on. What an amazing, sort of technical first question. I'm pumped. On to question 2. Notice the fade. I learned how to do fades. Oh, we're getting fancy over here. Question 2. What's the value in small details during major scenes? Why is a reader going to care if somebody taps a pen or drops a fork? Okay, let's introduce a new term. Maybe not a new term to my clients, but we're going to give you a term that you can use. So let's say you've got a scene, right? You've got 2 people talking, and it's something important. It doesn't matter what specifically, but the major elements of the scene are going on. They're yelling at each other. They're fighting. They're arguing. 2 guys are monologuing. The guns get drawn. I don't know, something big where you definitely want the reader's attention, right? The minute you jump away from the big details, the big important stuff, just for a sentence, just for part of a sentence, and you go to this little detail, like the ticking of a clock. I don't know if you can hear this. The tapping of fingers on something. Those little details that seem to be completely disconnected from the big thing, whatever the big thing is. That's called a kick out. It's also called a distraction, although that's not a great name because it sounds worse than it is. But it's a kick out. You're kicking reader attention away over there just to this little thing just for a second. Why do that? Why is that important? Because it suddenly makes the big important thing bigger and more important. Let's go back to our example, right? We've got 2 people arguing in the scene. It's very tense. It's very urgent. We want to pay attention. It's really critical that one person gets their feelings out and the other person responds, and this is critical to our story. We need this scene to be good. All of a sudden, having a sentence float somewhere, probably between these 2 paragraphs or just off to the side, very casually kind of inserted in, as some character gets quiet, you want to bring to the reader's attention this idea of tick, 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 tick in the background. Because the clock's been ticking in the room since you wrote the room. But to draw reader attention to it, I'm pointing literally at a clock over here. To draw reader attention to it suddenly makes the silence, the distance between the 2 people having this intense argument, the waiting, the anticipation, the feeling you've been developing, it suddenly makes that more intense. Think about when we're watching a movie, when we're watching 2 people argue and everybody gets quiet and all you hear is ticking in the background. It builds that tension. It elevates everything. The benefit of tapping a pen or dropping a fork or a little small detail like a ticking clock or the rustle of leaves or a bird over there in the trees, It doesn't necessarily have to come from silence. It can be a small detail like the way somebody makes a fist or the way someone quickly looks away. Just some small detail that seems completely disconnected from the big major stuff, whatever it is that's going on. That's going to help give that reader a second to kind of tell them, hey, pay more attention. I'm going to control, the writer, I'm going to control your attention for the reader. I'm going to direct you. Because remember, every sentence is a camera. By the way, if you've not seen that video on the YouTube channel, go watch that. It will change your life. But every sentence is a camera, and the way we direct the reader's attention is we grab them by the face and we steer their face, and where their eyes go is what we're writing the sentence about. So that idea, that concept, that thing, where we put their focus matters, because what we're choosing to put their focus on is important to us. So why is the reader going to care? Because it's just for a sentence, and that sentence must be there for a purpose. That's why they're going to care. Small details can elevate the scene they occur in. Now, granted, you could totally mess this up. You can super screw this up. And all of a sudden have you could just pick a bad small detail, right? Like two people are arguing and then all of a sudden somebody across the room for no reason. Or a car starts across the street. That has nothing at all to do. It doesn't require our focus. It doesn't help drive us to care more. It doesn't create more tension. It's just this random other sound. That doesn't work here. We don't want that. We want stuff that's going to purposefully amplify or repurpose or refocus the attention, tension, stakes, and emotion the reader is feeling. That's why small details are super valuable. That's why we don't always want to get into this habit of, here's a big detail, big thing, back and forth, plot, character, only the big stuff, and that makes the story feel real skinny. We want to embellish and develop things by using little techniques like kickouts. There's other techniques we can talk about, but we can use techniques like kickouts to really craft the overall scene as more than just the box in which our plot occurs. That's why a reader will care, because you'll make them care. Oh, we're killing these questions. Oh. Third question. How do you write a drunk character's internal monologue? I don't know why I kept putting this question off. I have to tell you, I put this question off for a while. I'm not sure why. It didn't make me uncomfortable or anything. Maybe I thought it was too simple a question. I don't know, but I'm answering it now. It depends on what your purpose is. If you're trying to draw attention to the fact that the character is drunk or inebriated or not sober or in whatever altered state they're in. It doesn't necessarily have to only be drunk, right? If you're trying to draw attention to the fact that they have altered their state of sobriety or they've altered their state of consciousness, depending on what we're talking about, and you want to highlight the fact that that's bad for whatever reason, I don't know, maybe that's just how you feel about it. But if you're trying to draw attention to the fact that they are this way that is, by all accounts, according to you, not normal, then you'll play up and describe how the idea is parsed on the page. You'll draw out the words, you'll add some ellipses, you'll make your copy editor cry, you'll make your developmental editor think you're a child. But you'll draw out all the R's and the S's and the M dashes, and it'll just look garbagey on the page. Because you're trying way too hard to create or suggest the idea of, hey, reader, hear, I'm making air quotes, hear this in your head a certain way. So that everybody's doing like a Foster Brooks impression. Young people, just Google that, Foster Brooks. It'll all make sense. Look it up on YouTube. You'll get it. If you're trying to, now that calls specific attention to the fact that the character is not sober, and you're calling putting a spotlight to, I should say. You're putting a spotlight to the idea of like, hey, they've altered their state. If you're trying to demonstrate that their altered state is yielding some result, i.e., they drink too much and they get weepy. That's a thing that happens. And you want to draw attention to how that altered state has lowered their emotional defenses or lowered their psychological defenses so that you can spend time with them in some kind of weird anxiety shame spiral, right? Like a character loses a loved one and they get drunk and then mope about it, right? I don't know. I'm just making general scenes up. But the idea primarily is that if we're focusing on what happens as a result of the drunkenness, then the internal monologue itself does not entirely change from if they were sober, other than, you know, the content of that monologue, the words you choose, the ideas you get across will change. It becomes less about, I'm going to hit the R and S key like 16 times, because you're not a child. You can do better than that. But it depends on what purpose you're trying to serve by having that internal monologue. It's not that big a deal. People tend to make it a big deal because, look, that character's drunk. Yep. Neat. What else you got? But by and large, it depends on whether we're drawing attention to the altered state or the consequences, ramifications, or effects, or not the effects, the consequences, ramifications, or the results. That's the word I was looking for. The results of the altered state. That's why it might matter. Depends on what you're doing. All right, here we are. We've blazed through 3 questions. We're doing good. Anybody in chat? Hello, people in chat. I hope you're doing well. Anybody got any questions about anything? Please let me know if your wife would like another air horn. I'm going to get a mouthful of tea. Anybody has any questions, fire away. What tea am I rocking this week? I thought you had a date. Tonight is Barry's Black African. It's very nice. It's real strong. It's real dark. I am, as the kids say, living for it. Primarily because it is like hyper caffeinating me, and I'm just trying to pick up my mood after a long ass day. But it's good. I'm quite pleased. Quite pleased. You're on earbuds now, so pass on the air horn. Okay. Would you like a quiet sound effect? Can I give you a quiet one? Like, let's see. I think I've got the wrong person. Oh no, I thought there was a date. I'm so sorry. Somebody somewhere is on a date. Or they said they were going to, and I hope they're doing well. All right. Here, I can't even find like a quiet sound effect. Let me mute this. Hang on. Here, we'll give you like a quiet one. How's that? Like, have a Wilhelm scream. That didn't blow out your ears because you're on earbuds. Any other questions, issues? You're very welcome. Writing questions, publishing questions, strange punctuation, grammar questions like I got this morning at 7 a.m. Somebody just had to email me and ask about semicolons, but at like length, right? Like I wrote many, many words in an email about semicolons. I don't know why. I hope I helped them. There's a question, a few things up. Let me scroll up. What recommendations do I have to make a booth appealing at a convention? Like, how do I make a booth appealing? Hang on, we're gonna slap this up on screen. Why are you pink? I don't want you in pink. I want you in like blue. Can we put you in blue? Yeah. What recommendations do I have to make a booth appealing at a convention? Okay. Step 1, use the entire space. Like if you have a whole table, like if you're sharing a table with other people, yeah, you've got to play nice. But if you have the whole table available to you, use that whole space. Sit yourself at the center and then spread outward. Now, I don't know if this is a table with the shield, the PPE shielding in front of you. If that's the case, that's going to change things. If this is just your masked or I guess unmasked and you have your wares in front of you, then what you can do is remember that the banner you have, the bunting, whatever idea you put around to shroud the table, Let's say no shield. I'm so sorry. But okay, whatever banner, wrap, etc. you put to like identify your table is only going to be seen at a distance. Presumably the people who come up on that table, you know, they're bodying your table essentially. They're not going to be able to see the banner you put out with like the name of your publishing company, the name of your books, whatever. So if you're going to put something around to dress the table, not the top of the table, we'll talk about that in a second, but like the sides, don't go overboard with it, because remember, that's only going to be seen at a distance. And you're trying to do more than just have people go, oh, hey, look at that over there. You're trying to get them past that. You're trying to get them to come closer. So we want to make sure that we think about the consumer, because that's who's, I'm presuming it's purchasers. It's people who will buy shit, who are going to come up to the table, right? So we want to think about the table once they're there, which means the table top that they're going to look down on to see the books can be not just stack of books, a few books artfully leaning this way or that way, but you can, tablecloth, big foam square, logo, book cover, expanded in go to a printer, get it stretched out, put it over the top, make a big tablecloth out of your book cover. Because again, they're going to look down and see your products and go, it's not just a boring table. You don't want it to be just a boring table. You want it to stand out and be appealing. Now, if we're limited to just a table, then you want to put the books you are most eager to sell in two places, generally near from you and then at a distance from you. Both. So that way people who come up to you and talk to you have a book right there in their hand. And people who sort of mill around the table, because there's always people who mill around tables, put it down on the end. I don't know left or right end. It depends on where you're situated. But put some down on the end so that somebody can leaf through. Although I got to tell you, the whole idea of conventions make me really, really uncomfortable. Like make my skin itch uncomfortable. But that's a John thing, not a you thing. You if you're feeling up to it, you feel up to it. Just be careful. But you have this situation where if you've got your two big cells, the thing you're definitely pushing, near in front of you so that you can hand-to-hand it, so that you can talk about it, so you can leaf through, so you can wave it around and demonstrate it, but you've also got some books, the same thing on another pile on the end, you're constantly keeping the conversation centered around, hey, here's this thing I'm definitely trying to push at you. Beyond that, any other material you have, let's say you have multiple books. If you don't have multiple books, by the way, just make multiple piles of the book and have lots of things to talk about and engage regularly. Not like in a hyper, oh my God, hi, how are you? Because that sounds creepy. You want to engage in more of a direct, thanks for coming, just like a podcast. Hey, thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for coming up. I really appreciate it. And come at that position so that you're not immediately challenging the consumer to overcome your enthusiasm and then make a decision. You're trying to encourage, you're leading the horse to water that they might drink by handing you money for a book. Rather than leaping at them. Remember the Disney store in the 90s? Where like the employees or whatever the fuck they were called were like hyper vigilantly positive. And it was like they were all tweaked out on coke. Maybe they were. And you just felt like boggled or blown away by their enthusiasm for you wanting to buy like a Princess Jasmine doll. So you can get around that by just starting the conversation off with, hi, how are you today? What's going on? Seen any other good books? What was your other favorite table? Can you believe the weather we're having inside this? It was castmates. Ooh, I do not care for that word at all. Coming back to the table, you want to castmates. That's disgusting. You want to, because they're certainly not getting paid like their union, are they? You want to make sure the conversation centers not just only around, hey, buy my book, hey, buy my book, hey, buy my book, but also that it develops into an organic conversation between people, where the books and the sales are incidental. So your table becomes a way to facilitate the conversation. So you might start talking. Now, this is going to require some amount of like open-endedness. You're going to have to lead the person a little bit and be a little receptive in response. But rather than be like, hi, do you want a book? Hi, do you want a book? You've got this whole wealth of books laid out, stacked and towered and balanced. Maybe you've got some promo art. Maybe you've got a nice table cover to sort of indicate what's going on. And you are able to casually mention just to random people around, oh, yeah, I've been writing this book for a couple years. Here's the genre. This is what it's about. Here are some themes. This is what I'm trying to do. This weird dude on the internet told me to say it like this, so here I am. Conversation first to bring the people close to the table. Once they're at the table, transition to whatever they're engaging with on the table, not unlike watching a small child in a kindergarten class. Whatever they pick up, whatever they examine, whatever they seem to be paying attention to, that's your first point of conversation. Oh, that book? That's a fantasy novel about such and such and so and so. It was the first book I wrote. It took me 9 months. Let me tell you a story about those 9 months. You ever try to write where, you've got a cat constantly perched on your shoulder? It was crazy. So again, you are reinforcing the idea of associating, here's this book that you, consumer, are holding with, hey, here's me and my energy level, here's my vibe, and here's a story. So that it isn't just like going to the grocery store and having somebody like ask you, hi, can I bag your groceries, please? You want to get past that. So your table facilitates conversation. Decorate the top, stack some books on the side. Don't go crazy and swag because that's more shit you just got to carry later. And just keep talking. Wear comfortable shoes too. That's how I would handle conventions. Although, to be fair, I don't honestly expect to be going, Danny. Not without like hazmat suits or a bubble or something. But that's just me. Other questions? Anybody? Good question, though. Still bugged about the castmates. Yeah, you're super welcome. Thank you. In first-person point of view, how would you show the power scale of the antagonist without killing the protagonist? Oh, gosh. Okay. That's a great question. Here we go. If killing the protagonist is the deep end of the pool, right? Like, that's too far, because that'll very clearly show you the power scale of the antagonist. Everything that leads up to that works. So if the protagonist is in the middle of getting beat, like just knocked around the room, kicked through a wall, dumped off a cliff, whatever, have the protagonist, because you're in first person, have the protagonist talk about the effects. I mean, in addition to saying like, they punched me or they kicked the snot out of me. In addition to the statement of like what you want the reader to picture, develop it, follow it up with the sort of, you don't need to get like hyper medical. He broke 2 of my ribs. Like it doesn't need to be hyper specific, but you need to develop and describe some amount of harm or damage inflicted. Because if you're in the middle of demonstrating power without killing the protagonist, you have to draw out that moment. So talk about injury inflicted. His 3rd and 4th punches clearly cracked something inside me, and it became hard to breathe. You want to talk about the effects of being hit in addition to the act of being hit. Whether that's fists, feet, magic, whatever. Good question. Good question. Yeah, it's a great question. You're very welcome. Anything else? Anybody else? Anything? Let me scroll up and make sure I didn't miss anything. Shall we move on? Let's move on. Question number 4, is there any benefit to reading biographies as a science fiction fantasy writer? Yeah. Yes, flat out. There's always a benefit to reading far outside your genre when it comes to being whatever genre writer you are. That benefit's going to come in a couple different things. One, it's going to show you how somebody very different than you wields language, particularly exposition if you're reading biographies. There's not necessarily a lot of monologuing or internal development, at least not explicitly the same way we see it in fiction. But you're going to get a real sense of how to present usually distant and detached material, descriptions, concepts, time, passage of time, history. You're going to see how to deploy that in not necessarily the most sterile terms, but it's going to show you a different set of tools to talk about the stuff that isn't the plot and isn't what the actions of the character are doing directly. It's going to show you a different way to move the camera. It's going to show you a different way to develop your ideas. Also, biographies are really, really interesting. And it can be nice to take a break. One of the things that happens, especially with newer writers or very unsure writers, they tend to like find their genre and then read deep as hell in it. Like, oh my God, I'm a Wheel of Time person. I'm going to read all of the Wheel of Time. But then when you ask them if they've stepped out of that for whatever reason, oh no, I don't. I read this. This is what I read. This is what I write. I'm in this pool. And it's fine. It's okay that they're doing that. It's okay that, you know, they're deep in the pool they're in and they're deeply immersed in the material. But there's also a great benefit to stepping away from that, getting some perspective, seeing how other people craft other ideas, seeing other ideas in general. That doesn't necessarily limit yourself to fiction. You can go to nonfiction. Just see how people use and wield language to whatever end. It will have an impact on you as a writer, no matter what it is you're writing. It doesn't always seem like that at the time, because you're sitting there reading like, oh my God, why do I have to read this 5,000 thing? It's dry as hell. I know. There's not enough robots or dragons or ninjas or bears or whatever. I know. But to see how someone tells a story about a thing is valuable to you. Your story is more made up. Their story is grounded in a different kind of thing, fact, reality, etc. So you're just seeing how other people use the same tools you do. Super useful. Don't dismiss or demonize the biography because it's so distant or so foreign relative to what you're writing. It's super useful. And they're great audiobooks. Question number 5. If an agent is closed to queries, can I tag them on Twitter and email them with a different manuscript? All right, I'm going to reach over here very unsubtly and press this button. Okay, look. We might actually have to go to like the main screen for this. Yeah, let's go to the main screen. Hang on. Look. Please do not snitch tag agents. If they're closed to queries, you tweeting at them is not going to suddenly make them reconsider opening up. Oh, that one person from that one place who I don't fucking know. They're exactly who I was waiting for. They weren't. They're not. They're closed to queries. Let them be closed to queries. You're not going to suddenly compel them. It's really irritating. It's a great way to not get your stuff read. Do not just randomly tag them. Follow them, see when they're going to open back up, and then submit your manuscript. Now, there's some context additionally to this question because it's all about whether or not, like, I emailed them before with manuscript number 1. Now I'm over here with manuscript number 2, but they're closed for queries. At least that's how I'm interpreting the question. If they're closed for queries, just like going to a business where the business is closed for the day, they're closed for the day. You wait until they're open. Doesn't matter how long it's been. Doesn't matter if it's been 5 weeks, 5 months, 5 years. Wait until they're open and then conduct business as per usual. But please don't just tag them on Twitter. It's weird. It's invasive. Even if it's well-intentioned, it's invasive. Don't do it. Especially don't double down and go, I'm going to tag you on Twitter and email you. They are closed for queries. They're not looking at more stuff. You don't have to keep doing that, is what I'm saying. Don't do that. Just don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. So, no. Ready for the next one? Oh my God. Gentle advice. Question number 6. Gentle advice. Can you help me make a writing schedule? Yes. Now, again, there's missing context here. I couldn't fit it all on the frame. The person writing me this question works a 40-hour-a-week job. And they... let me look at my list. They do not have kids. But they work a 40-hour-a-week job, and they're real tired. And that when they get done their job, they really don't want to sit and write. How do they make a writing schedule? Okay, step number 1. Map out your time and figure out how you spend your hours, even if the majority of them are going to be work hours. Map it out 1 hour at a time for a whole week. Doesn't matter if you start on Saturday, Sunday, or Monday. Doesn't matter. Just map 7 days. An hour at a time. You get up at this hour, and think about things in hour-long blocks or half-hour blocks. So you're going to lump together all the wake up, take a shower, brush teeth, get dressed. You're going to lump all that into an hour. This is not an exercise where we need to be showered from 7:07 to 7:19. You don't need to do that. It doesn't help if you do that. It's not going to stop you if you do that, but it's just not going to help you here. Think about things in half-hour or hour-long blocks. Map your day. Map 7 days. From the time you wake up to the time you go to bed. Now, we are creating somewhat of a fantasy here because not everybody sleeps the same amount of time. Not everybody gets up the same amount of time. Not every commute is standardized in length. Traffic happens. Things happen. I get it. But we're trying to map out as best we can the time. The first thing we want to do, once we map out who does what when and how long it takes. So you're going to map out, commute to work, be at work, lunch break, stay at work, commute home, and then what do you do? Be honest about what you do when you're home. Do you just usually go find something to stare at? I understand you should be writing. That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking how you genuinely spend your time. Be honest with yourself. Don't worry about me on the internet. Be honest with yourself. Write it down. 7 days. Morning, noon, night. Whole deal. The next thing you want to do is you want to identify hours, section of times, whatever, where you are willing to change from the one thing you're doing to writing. So maybe that means that you've got I'm going to make something up. You've got a 2-hour window on Thursday where you generally tend to watch one of the same 15 things over and over, and you've probably done it forever, and you can quote it, and it's comforting to you because it's routine, but at the same time, you could take one of those half-hour chunks that you do that in and try writing. Now, that change in your schedule is going to create some resistance. It's going to be difficult to deal with. You're going to feel like you don't want to. It's going to be like a whole pain in the ass. I get it. But if we're trying to institute a new habit, we have to dedicate time to it. And the reason why we're not wiping the slate clean is because you work 40 hours a week in this example. And as nice as it would be to say you know what, screw your job, because bosses are capitalists and we can introduce them to walls one day, comrade. But past that, you have to contend with the reality of your day. And rather than try and fill every single gap and make every alteration so that you are awake, asleep, at work, or writing, rather than doing that in an unhealthy way, pick and choose between 2 and 4 spots in either half-hour blocks or hour blocks and write. Maybe that's going to be on the weekends. That's fine. But once you put it on the schedule, it's on the schedule. That's just how it is. And that becomes your writing time. And then prior to whatever that writing time is, let's say it's 10 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. 20 minutes before that happens, set an alarm to remind yourself that, hey, in 20 minutes, it's writing time. Do it at 20 minutes, then do it at 10 minutes. And then somewhere in that 10-minute window, go get your shit together that you need to write. Get your glass of water, get your pens, get your note cards, get your laptop out, get your charger, get whatever it is you need. Get your cup of coffee, whatever. And then when it's time to write, go write. Even if it's just one day a week, even if it's just 30 minutes. I know. There's this drive, there's this compulsion, there's this sense, there's this idea that you should be writing more. Yes, you should be writing more, but it's just not feasible. That's not your fault. That's capitalism. Capitalism is the problem. Believe me, I know. So what we're doing is we're carving the time you have. We're carving the flexible time. We're carving the time that's yours. And you're making a conscious decision to dedicate some fraction, not the whole, some fraction, so that you can put together some amount of accomplishment. Do that for a week, do that for 2 weeks, do it for 3 weeks. It becomes a habit. You'll stick with it. Some days you're not going to want to. Those are the days you definitely have to do it. That's how you build a writing schedule. And then over time, you expand past that. But start small. Do not carve up all your free time just to this thing. It's not going to help you. Good question. Now there's a question over here in chat. Should outline or planning things go into a different time slot? No. I mean, if you have that many available slots of time, yes, by all means. If you've got, like, let's say 4 half hours available, you could dedicate one to outlining and planning. Go ahead. Sure. But if you're finding you only have 1 or 2, it doesn't have to be a special thing. Just because it's a time to write does not mean only writing can occur. It can be writing adjacent things. Outlining and planning are part of the writing process. It would be great if, there was dedicated writing day and dedicated outlining day, but we can't always have that, and we should not always try and force that. Hi, everybody. So what you can do is just say, well, this is my writing block. This is the time in which I will do something related to my writing, whether that's an actual, like I'm going to sit down and type my chapter, or whether I'm going to outline, or whether I'm going to go over my notes, or whether I'm going to figure out what the hell to do in chapter 20, or I'm just going to finally, figure out how not to hit the comma so many times. It's writing related. It counts. And do that in your block of time. If you have a lot of blocks of time, let's say like you find that you're willing to give half an hour every day, then yeah, dedicate one of those half hours. Since you have multiple of them, dedicate one to planning and outlining. But don't go, if you that's again assuming you have several. If not, just take the one and use it however you need to. Great, excellent questions. On we go. Any other questions? While I look and see if I make sure I answered that one question correctly. I apologize for looking down. I just want to make sure I answered her question clearly. Yes, did I eat today? Yes, I did in fact eat. I've eaten 3 times. I had all 3 meals today. I had all 3 meals. Let's see. Breakfast was, what did I have for breakfast? Just eggs and toast. Nothing giant. Lunch was an eggplant portobello mushroom burrito. It was spicy. It was delicious. And then just now for dinner, before sitting down to record, hang on a minute. Just while sitting down to record, I had this amazing, I don't even know what to call it. I have the recipe over here. It's this sort of like It's like a rigatoni and a tomato cream sauce. It had a little garlic. It had some spinach in it. It had some chicken in it. It was unfairly good. Like, disturbingly super, like, oh my God, I can't believe how good that is. It really, like, kind of blew my mind. I'm just checking to make sure I got her. Thank you for asking if I ate, by the way. I'm pretty pleased about my... I am pretty jacked up about the writing, and I was pretty pumped about that. All right. Italian cuisine is where it's at. Normally I'm a Mexican guy. Mexican, Spanish, South American, somewhere in there. But it's kind of a crap day here. And I was hungry, and I had a carbo load because I'm going to record for a while. So pasta it was. It was good. It was really good. I think next time I'm going to add more chicken because it always use more chicken and spinach. It was good. It was awesome. So yeah, I did eat today. Thank you for asking. Thank you for looking after me. Thank you for taking care of me. I hope I get a chance to take care of you just as much one day. What is this? There we go. Other questions, issues, etc. At some point, I think there's a gossipy publishing question coming. I think. Possible. All right. On we go. Why is this? I'm sorry. I'm distracted for a minute just because. There we go. Question 7. Oh man, it's time to attack some bad internet advice. Here we go. Question number 7. If I take all the passive voice out of my manuscript, what am I supposed to put in instead? Words. You're supposed to put words in your manuscript. Okay. Should I go big screen for this? Should this be a big screen answer? You do not. Hang on. We're going to try a thing. Hang on a minute. You do not have to make everything passive or everything active. A little passive voice, like croutons in a salad, like Parmesan cheese on your pasta, like a little garlic on your garlic bread. A little bit of passive voice is okay. It's okay. Now, how much little is a little? Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't get down here on a mathematical level because that's not going to work. But you don't have to constantly and only be like active voice all the time. Sometimes it's unavoidable relative to what you're writing. And I hate to tell you this, those writers you idolize up here, oh my God, you're the writer. They use passive voice. The reason why writing advice tells you don't use passive voice is because for a lot of people, that's all they use. And it is a surprise and a treat and a delight and a rarity to have active voice. What we're trying to do is flip that around so that the majority of your stuff is active. And every once in a while, because you need to, you go passive. It's the combination of the two, the mix between the two, that is going to really let you... Oh, I lost my scene. It's really going to let you shape and tell the story the way you want. And yes, it depends on where you want to put the emphasis on the object of the sentence, the thing you're talking about. Sometimes it's going to be best presented if it's actively done, and sometimes it's going to be best presented if it's passively done. It's fine. Do that. Do whatever you got to do. Say whatever you got to say to get your best story out of your brain and onto the page. Sometimes that's going to be passive. Okay? Okay. Oh, man. Hang on a second. I'm going to dip out of frame for a second. Hang on. The thing is sliding. Wait right there. Wait. I don't have a wait screen. Just hold up. Okay. All right, we're back. Stupid thing. I have to fix that tomorrow. Okay. Question number 8. How did you get so good at pitching and querying? Because the guy who taught me how to do it insisted I do it all the time. Once I learned what the basics were, just about every day, I had to pitch something, not necessarily a book. Sometimes it was, pitch me the basketball game that's on right now. Pitch me going to get lunch. Write me a query letter about the thing you just read. Write me a query letter about a class. Verbally dictate a query letter. And what you learn to do over time is find out that pitching and querying are extensions of a combination of personality and information. Because information plus emotion helps shape a better quality pitch or query. This is really important. Because if you just give recitation of facts, here's this thing, there's this character, they do this, and I've written a couple questions because I want to sound like I know what I'm talking about. Doing that is dull as fuck. Dull as fuck. You might as well watch paint dry. You'll get just as published from it. You want to practice pitching and querying as frequently as possible and divorce yourself from the idea that it's wrong, bad, skeevy, creepy, lame, dull, or gross or something. I got good at pitching and querying because I learned how to talk about everything I was doing. This is also going to come up in a later question. But you're not trying to force the sale on someone. You're not trying to grab them by the lapels and say, buy this thing, or else, the nun gets it. We're not threatening a nun. We're not forcing anybody to do this thing. I'm trying to use a combination of information plus emotion to lay out this idea that, this might interest you. That's all. And then based on how effectively I do that, I've either interested you a little and you go, it's okay. It sounds okay, but it's not for me. Or I've interested you a lot and then you dive in. But you get there from doing it all the goddamn time. All the time. Not just when contests are open, not just once in a blue moon when the third thing does this way and the clock ticks that way. All the time. Always write a pitch. Hey, I got a pitch. How's this sound? Hey, I got a query letter. What about this? How would I start this? How would I do that? What about this? What about that? The only way you're going to get good at this is talking about it, is practicing it, is trying it, and making a ton of mistakes. And figuring out no, that doesn't sound engaging. No, that's too long a sentence. No, that's too long a query letter. Yes, you might end up with half a dozen, 2 dozen, 5 dozen queries that you might have to parse through. You just get it all down. Get used to doing it and then repeat it over and over. Practice it. Do it while you're driving. Do it while you're walking around. Do it while you're sitting there. Just practice it. It doesn't need to be formal. You don't always need to do every part of it. But figure out, okay, how would I sell this idea? How would I get it? How would here's a TV show I'm watching. How would I tell somebody else I think they should watch it? What would I say to them based on how well I know them? What words would I use? Other than just be like, hey man, you want to watch this show? It's really cool, which is a fine pitch. But let's say I wanted to do more than the bare minimum. Let's say I wanted to do something like, hey, I know you're into sci-fi. Here's a sci-fi show you might want to check out. It's got this, this, and this in it. Okay, now we're starting to build. Now we're starting to roll ideas together. I got good at pitching and querying, and I'm proud of how well I can pitch and query. People come to me all the time for pitching and querying help, and it makes me happy. It's a delightful way to spend an hour with me. I got good at it because I do it all the time, and I do it all the time because I like thinking about things in that way, and it's not this matter of how much of a used car salesman cliche can I be? It's more a matter of, okay, I'm going to try and make this thing sound interesting to you. Information plus emotion Here you go. Practice, 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 practice. I talk to myself a disturbing amount. Thank God I am often left alone, or there's nobody around when I do it, but I am frequently, especially in the last week, really talking to myself all the time. Some of it's about pitching. Some of it's about querying. Some of it's about walking through an idea. Okay, I'm going to say this. I'm going to try this. What about this? What if I said this? Does this sound like a thing? And you're just going to try. You're just going to try. And when it bombs, it bombs. Then you go sulk. You go have a root beer and you sit down and you're like, this sucks. And you get it out of your system and you move on with your day. But other times, you get really fired up because, oh my God, I know exactly how to say it. But that doesn't happen overnight. And that doesn't happen after one pitch or one query. That happens over a constant stream of these things as you constantly try, not just the same phrase pitched 4 different ways, repeated 3 times or whatever, but different phrasings, different ideas. What if I did it in this order? What if I did 2, 3, 1, 4, and then 4, 3, 2, 2? And what if I repeated this idea 5 times and come up with all these different combinations? Because ultimately you get to determine what it looks like. You get to determine how it comes across. So you just keep practicing. Here's a thing. Here is a thing. If you go over to writernextdoor.com, at the top of the page, there is a book an appointment thing. You click on it. You can book a free 30-minute appointment. It's free. It costs you nothing. You just need 30 minutes of your time. People do this a lot. They book a free appointment. Yes, more than one all the time. It's fine. And then they call me and they're like, I want to work on my pitch. Great. Sometimes I just put the phone down and they just go for 30 minutes. And every once in a while I stop them and say, like, try that one again. You're onto something. Or repeat that. I missed it. And they just practice. They just make mouth noises. You can do that. It doesn't cost anything. It'll help you. But I got good at it by practice. And I think, honestly, I'm better in... Well, today, somebody said I was better with written pitches and queries than I am verbally. But yesterday, somebody said I was better verbally than writing. So, it doesn't really matter. But you get good at it by practicing it. Practice, practice, practice. I've been doing this since 97, so I hope I got good at it. But I also deeply love doing it about anything, even non-writing things. John, pitch me on buying a new light. John, pitch me on starting an event. Pitch me on cat food. Ooh, dude, I'm all over it. Let's go. Because everything is practice. Everything is going to help me use language some way. It's going to teach me something. So, absolutely, let's do it. Great question. Great question. Oh my God, we're fighting more bad internet advice, it seems, with question number 9. What happens when you give a character a bad name and it sticks? Well, then that's just their name. That's just their name. I'm sorry. You're in charge of whether or not it sticks. And if it sticks, was it really that bad to begin with? Really? I mean, how many characters are you going to be able to name Odysseus, right? Sometimes it's a great thing. Sometimes it's totally out of place. When it's out of place, immediately go change it. But if you name your character, Hieronymus, and it sticks, well, then shit, they're Hieronymus. Here we go. Just roll with it. But once it sticks, it's no longer bad. Why do we do that? Why do we do that? I'm looking at the cat like the cat's going to go, well, John, the reason we do that. What is exactly is my question. What makes it a bad name? That's kind of where I'm going. Here, we're going to move that over there. What makes it a bad name? I guess it doesn't sound immediately perfect. It doesn't sound like, oh my God, that's the name of a fame. Like I could see that name on the screen or some horse shit. I don't know. It's just a name. Maybe you didn't like it originally, but it grew on you. I would make an effort to not nail down the goodness or badness and just go with a name. Now, granted, I am terrible at naming things. I'm also bad at titling things. I'm practicing. I've been working on it. But by and large, I'm not great at it because I often will go, here's a random old-timey name that I just think is a cool sounding word. Use that. And someone else has a very intense reaction to it if I suggest it. Like, what is that? I'm like, oh, that's a name from the 17th century. There you go. Because to me, it sounded cool. But to some other writer doing some other thing, they might be like, yeah, that's not what I'm going for. Okay, that's what we make lists for. But when a name sticks, it sticks. And even if it's stuck and you didn't like it, you can always change it. You can change a name deep into the writing process and certainly even deep, in some cases, into the editing process. In fact, there are some name changes that only occur in the editing process. When all of a sudden your editor's like, yeah, you've got a Sarah, a Susan, a Susie, a Sarah with an H, a Sarah without an H, a Samantha, and a Sam. One of these human beings is getting a different name. Editorial decision has to happen so that the reader can keep these human beings straight. If it sticks, it sticks, and it changes, it changes. It's okay. When it's I've been in publishing meetings where we're reading a thing or talking about a book, and somebody goes, "That's a terrible name for a character," and somebody editorially makes a note. And they bring it up to the writer later, like, hey, we discussed it, and we're not really feeling like Kevin as the name of your evil super wizard. You want to come up with a different one? And the author's like, no, it's Kevin. Well, then it's Kevin. And we can just go through the rest of our publishing meetings going, the badly named Kevin the super wizard. And we get over it. It's not that big a deal. There aren't any perfect names. There are just names that don't rankle, and we're just used to them. Don't get hung up on the idea that a name has to, be something. It's just a name. It's fine. It's a label. They can be changed. Are there more questions? I have to take 2 seconds before I sip this tea. I've noticed that since upping the production values, it's shorter. We are barely over an hour, and we are deep into the questions. I'm pretty pleased about that, but at the same time, I wondered how much dead air I had when it was just audio. Interesting. Well, maybe it's only interesting to me. That might be something I look up and put on Patreon. Questions, anybody? About anything? While I lean over and double check social media to make sure I got all those questions. When creating a writing portfolio, not shorter, streamlined. Oh, that's a good way to put it. I like that. When I'm creating a writing portfolio, what would you showcase to impress the recruiter? All right, I love the fact that you asked this question with would and not should. That's pretty awesome. Because there's no set thing, right? And there's also no set number. Some recruiters will say, we want to see X number of pieces. That's just, some recruiters do that the same way that submission guidelines suggest, send us the first 10 pages or something. But by and large, you want to send the recruiter, relative to the job you're doing, right? So if the job is for writing a video game, let's say, and you know that this video game is going to be dialogue heavy, lots of talking, lots of NPC interaction, right? You want to make sure that you have samples that speak to the strengths of the job for which you are applying. So if you're applying for a video game and there's going to be talking, show off your dialogue. If you're going to be doing character backstory and info on info screens, For instance, I've worked with the guy who wrote all the lore and history dumps for the Assassin's Creed series way back before it went in its current iterations, like in the Ezio days. Even I think it was Ezio all the way up to like Connor Kenway. In those days, when you could press like the button on the controller and get like a window of like pop-up information, I worked with that dude, Phil. He's a good man. But if you know that's what you're going to be writing, if you know that's what you're going to be doing, then you want to show off your exposition. So prioritize for this portfolio the writing, whatever kind it might be, that shows off the skills you think relative to the job. Not relative, relevant to the job. Then branch outward towards other kinds of writing that you're just proud of. Even if it's a curveball relative to the thing you're talking about. You're going to apply for this made-up video game that I just invented in my head. You're going to show off your dialogue and your exposition. And maybe you also want to like show off some world building in case you haven't in like a world building planning meeting. Or you have to talk to an artist about like, how do we make this fantasy tavern more fantastic? Well, here's how I described a fantasy tavern in this story. Let's see if we can use some of those elements. You want to play to your strengths, whatever you think your strengths are, and you definitely want to make sure that the focus of your samples leans towards material related to or necessary for the job you're applying for. Do not just jump in with like I'm applying for this video game job, so here's my children's book. Or like, I wrote 15 brand new sort of dirty limericks. Yes, arguably those are writing samples, but they're not a good representation relative to the thing you needed the portfolio for in the first place. Much like, Rogue Squadron, you got to stay on target here. And just spiral out after you've given your best material pursuant to the task. Does that make sense? Did I answer that question? Does that help you? Does that clarify things? It doesn't matter if they're big pieces or little pieces. Often portfolios will have requirement guidelines. Don't send us anything longer than 10,000 words or whatever. They'll tell you. If you're not sure, ask. Just like submission guidelines. But the overall critical important thing is that you address the job you're applying for first, and then everything else is whipped cream on your sundae. Awesome. Great question. Anybody else? Anything else? As I get another mouthful of tea. The pasta and stuff was good, but I'm thirsty now. Shit. Oh, good times. All right. We're going to try a thing for a second. I'm going to move the dramatic light because it's slightly better charged. So just hang on. I'm pretty sure this is going to end up looking really jack-o'-lantern-y. Hang on. Nope. Damn it. It is Barry's Dark. Yeah, that's awful. We're going to put that back the way it was. Okay, fix that in a minute. All right. On we go. Question 10. Much like our convention question from earlier, are writing retreats worth it? I would love to give you a blanket answer. I would love to give you just a flat blanket statement for this and go always yes or always no. But that's just not possible. Because every retreat varies, just like every convention's going to vary. in terms of size, in terms of quality, in terms of how attentive they are to you, in terms of how beneficial they are to you or whatever. If you're going to a retreat, like a physical, I'm going to a place retreat, putting the pandemic and everything else aside, just, yes, obviously be careful, wear a mask, wash your hands, get vaccinated, all that stuff. Putting that like way over there. If this writing retreat helps facilitate writing, like the solitude, the isolation, the detachment from everything else, allows you to focus, then yes, it would be worth it. If you're going because it allows you to network and meet other people and give yourself some inspiration, give yourself some motivation, get yourself some classes or help to resolve some issues, and that actively improves things, then yeah, totally helps. But if you're going or planning on going or feeling like you need to go or feeling like you should create one for your community just because that's a thing somebody else did, or that's a thing that you think you're supposed to do, no, that's not how that works. Don't do it because you think that's going to tick some box in terms of like, well, I'm a real writer. I've been to a retreat. Because there were plenty of writers on this planet who have never been to a retreat and they're doing just fine. Or they've been to some small retreat, but not like a big name retreat. So those things are often way over, way expensive, really, really obnoxious, and they don't give you nearly as much attention as something smaller or intimate or something like this, free. But it really depends. The worth of it really depends on whether or not you've got some tangible benefit. Like, why are you going? And is the retreat giving you a solution for that why? If that's the case, then yeah, that's what we're doing. And it's worth it for you. But don't go out of some sense of weird obligation. Like my industry, like I owe it to my industry. You don't owe shit to your industry. Go only if it's going to help you, because these things are time sinks, they're investments, they're intensive, they can be difficult, they can be frustrating, they can be positive. They can be lots of things. Don't feel like you need one in order to be good enough, because you're fine. You were good enough to begin with. A retreat can help, but it's not going to solve some of your problems. And in fact, it may create more. On we go. Question 11. What's one writing exercise I can do daily that will make a difference in my writing? This is the question I have waited all night for. This is the question. Put a big here. I'm going to put air horns in now. Mind your earbuds. Yeah, here you go. You want to get better at writing action and exposition and pacing and scene development? While you're doing whatever you're doing, so long as you can dedicate some thought and brain space to it, narrate it in the third person. John stood at the sink, towel in hand. Suds in the water rising, steam caressing the edges of his face. He began to wash the dishes. Narrate it dramatically, verbally, out loud. Yes, it's goofy, but it will get you thinking about how to structure and frame sentences. He sat in traffic, waiting. The car in front of him idled. The light had long since turned green. Why wasn't this asshole moving? Just narrate it. You want to do it in third person because first person can get really ranty really quickly. Especially if you're me and prone to yelling at people while you're driving. But third person lets you focus on the things, the actions, the activities while detaching from yourself. Because now you have to consider yourself a separate party. John grabbed the microphone and sat forward in his chair, trying his best to make eye contact with the shitty webcam. Angry that the cat knocked a key off his keyboard and he's going to have to figure out how to pop it back into place. Third person. Any tense you want. You want to do past tense? Great. You want to do present tense? Great. Just do it. Just do it. Just do it daily. Doesn't have to be long either. Couple minutes. And do it over a variety of activities. I'm going to move that light again. Oh, mood lighting. Mostly it's just going over here out of the way. But just brief periods of time. Do it a couple times during the day randomly. It's not going to take a lot to make a difference. The razor clawed its way down his cheek. The sound of hair cutting a relief to the stress he felt. I just made shaving sound evocative. You don't always have to frame these sentences around your pronoun or around your character name, your name, or anything. You can just, as though you were reading it verbatim from a page, right? Like we're picking it up and we're reading the same way. Just say it out loud while you're doing it. It might slow you down. You might have to stop and think about it a little bit, but it will make a difference when it comes to write. It's one of my favorite writing exercises. It'll make a difference. It'll make a huge difference. Just give it a try. Great question. Love that question. Gentle advice. Question 12. How do I find my audience? They're over there. They're over there waiting for you. That's the flippant answer, right? This is a little hard to explain, so bear with me. I'm going to move this light because I'm going to lean into the camera here. All right, look. In order for you to consider your audience, in order for you to think about who your audience is, you can't think about them as a monolithic group because no audience is a singular monolithic group. They're just not. They're not going to be. They're not about to be. They won't be later. Your audience is made up of a billion, bajillion, trillion individual people. They have a lot of things in common. One of them being that they like your work. But your audience is comprised of individuals. So what you need to do to find that audience is first consider who's in that audience. Now, there is a school of thought, and I'm a proponent of it, of trying to figure out who the hell your audience is. Sitting down first and going, okay, who do I want to read my book? And if you say everybody, and I mean this kindly, start over and do the exercise again, because everybody is an unhelpful, asinine answer. Try to drill down, try to come up with something a little bit more concrete. Something like, well, it'd be really great if women 20, like I'm aiming for women who are just out of college. We're reading my new adult romance novel or whatever it is you're writing. Okay, so how old would they be? Well, they're just out of college themselves, so let's say early 20s. Okay, women, early 20s. What else would you, when you think about them, what do you think about them? Well, they have a little bit of disposable income because they keep buying my books. Okay, so they've got a little bit of disposable income. Great. Are they well educated? Did they attend a good school so that they could, understand the nuances and depth of your book? Yeah, they probably did. So, okay, so you've got, women 20 to 20, 21 to 25 with some disposable income. Great. Do they read a lot? Do they only read you? Do they read other people too? Well, no, they read a lot and they like mine. Okay, what is it they like about yours? Well, I guess they like the way I write my dialogue. Okay, do they like lots of dialogue and things? Yeah, I like writing it, so sure, let's just go with that. And then you work your way through in sort of an interrogative position, one thing after the other. Well, what about this? What about that? Until you're able to map out a fairly coherent big picture on them. So that eventually, once you get all this data on this made-up person, you can give them a name. My ideal reader is named Margaret. She's 27 and recently just broke up with her boyfriend because he was unsatisfying and slightly untrustworthy and never really seemed to have motivation. Margaret's big on motivation lately, especially after the pandemic. Because her boyfriend was kind of a jerk and didn't really listen. He didn't really communicate effectively, so she dumped him, which is good because she'd been thinking about doing it for the last year. She just sort of dragged it out. But now she's single. Now she's just trying to make her way. She wanted to get into writing, so she has a lot of questions. And she's gone on the internet to look for advice, but she's just been bombarded by either a lot of the same stuff, barely repackaged, or a diversity of opinions, and she feels paralyzed. So what she tries to do is consistently set up a little bit of a routine and a little bit of sameness so that she can build a really good foundation, because Margaret likes to operate from a position of stability and intelligence that allows her to feel empowered. That, for example, is one of my ideal people. That's who I am for when I talk. Have a very nice night, sir. You want to build your audience out of these sort of interviewee kind of things, one step at a time. Maybe have more than one person. That's totally legit. And then figure out, okay, well, this is who they are, but the next question is, where are they? Well, if you know who they are, you can figure out where they go. What websites do they go on? Are they on social media? Are they on social media a lot? Yes? No? If they are, which social media? Go there. Because while you might not find the actual Margaret you picture, you will find people who are pretty similar to the Margaret you invented. And sure enough, if you lay out a good pitch like we talked about a few questions back, people will be interested. But you have to know who you're aiming for so you can figure out where they'll be. This is no longer the era of I put my shingle out and people suddenly just magically know to come to me. You're going to have to do some legwork. That's not because you're bad. That's not because you're wrong. It's just because this is the era of legwork. Here we go. You can do this, but it starts with figuring out who you're trying to find so that we can figure out where they might be. Do not just go, they're on Twitter. They're on Facebook. Great. So is everybody. What else you got? Dial it in. Think for a second. Okay? You can do this. Really, truly, you can do this. But you figure out who, and then figure out where that person would go, and then you just go there. Meet them there. And meet them where their problem is, and they will come to you. Patience, patience, patience. Great question. I think. Yeah, why is that there? That's supposed to come down here. That's it. That's what we have tonight. If you liked this, I would love to know about it. Down below, if you're watching this video, you'll see there's some words on the screen. Monday night, the topic has already been announced. We're going back to How Do I Write This? A very popular series. I'm going to specifically talk about how to write a review, on the Amazon or wherever you leave your reviews. I want to talk about the better format you can use and the format you can use to encourage people. So that's on Monday. But this was tonight. Thank you so much for being here. It was delightful. It was wonderful. I apologize for the weird lighting and all the other issues. I hope you had a good time. Shall we do the outro? Are there any other questions before we do the outro? I still have tea. Oh, it's my pleasure. I hope I wasn't screamingly loud in your earbuds. Questions, issues, comments, concerns, panic, anxiety, tension, pleasures, etc. You're welcome, guys. I think we should go to the outro. I was no louder than the baby. That's all I can really ever ask for, frankly. I mean, that's just fantastic news. I'm so glad I was about as loud as a baby. Good job, John. Thank you so much for being here tonight, everybody. Thanks for just asking good questions and hanging out and generally enjoying the everything. Thanks, guys. It means the world to me. The next time I'm here, the next time I'm in your ears will be Monday, March the 28th, where we're going to talk about how to write a review. And the next time I'm back here to have one more chat with you is Wednesday, March the 30th. As per usual, I'm here Monday and Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. All this material, the audio for this, will be up on the podcast feed within the hour. And then it'll be on YouTube at some point tomorrow. YouTube has been incredibly persnickety. Yes, it's your birthday. Hooray. Happy birthday. So consider that a gift. That's a weird gift. We all deserve better than that. But yeah, it'll go up tomorrow. The podcast will be out tonight. I hope you enjoyed this. If you do have questions, if you do want to know what else you can do, if you want to support this and anything else I do, the best place you can go is jump on the Patreon, patreon.com/John helps you create. And if you want help with your work, whatever it is you're doing, no matter what it is you're doing, I'd be happy to help you. Just jump over to writernextdoor.com and see what I can do to help. All right, guys. Have a great night. Take care of yourselves. All power to all people. Wear a mask, wash your hands, love somebody, love yourself. And I'll talk to you very, very soon. See ya!